The Eurogroup President, Mr. Pascal Donoghue, will take you through the main outcomes of the meetings, together with Commissioner Dombrovskis, the President of the ECB, Christine Lagarde, and the ESM Managing Director, Pierre Gramegna. President, the floor is yours.
So good morning, everybody, and it's a great pleasure to be here in Copenhagen, and I want to thank Stephanie and her team for their great welcome and for the efficiency of the programme that is now underway. And we were very glad to commence today with our Eurogroup meeting, which was distinctive in that we welcomed our colleagues and friends from Bulgaria in as observers into the Eurogroup in anticipation of them becoming full members of the Euro area as of the 1st of January. For this session, we also welcomed Chair Laluk, the Chair of the Econ Committee of the European Parliament, to continue our important dialogue with the Parliament. The first item that we discussed was the Eurogroup work programme, which will take us up to the middle of next year. This was the culmination of consultations that I've had with all members of the Eurogroup. We're all aware of the dramatic change that is taking place around us, but the continued value of Europe and the strength and impact of the collective decisions that we make. And the work programme aims to continue to bring that to life in the decisions that we want to make. The key themes of that work programme are our work with regard to budget coordination, our continued efforts with regard to capital markets and the banking union, and then also the various projects that are feeding into the role of the euro, but within the euro area, its growth and also its role within the global economy. That in turn informed the discussion that we had on the digital euro. But before we got to the digital euro discussion, we continued our agenda with an update on the economic situation, the summary of which is despite the uncertainty that exists on so many different levels, our outlook does continue to be of growth which is resilient, and at the heart of that growth is the continued strong performance of labour markets all over the euro area. Each of us within the Eurogroup know that that growth needs to be strengthened. We know there's much that we can do to improve the economic performance of the euro area on the world stage, but at the same time, the fact that our growth outlook has moved up by a bit, and the fact that the jobs performance is still so strong are very important elements in how we see the euro performing. That then set the stage for what was a very important and ultimately very productive discussion on the digital euro. And before I go any further, I want to acknowledge and thank the commitment that non-euro countries have demonstrated to this project in the presidencies of Poland, which has now been built on under the work of Stephanie and the Danish presidency. In the discussion here today, what we aimed to do was to identify a way forward and a basis for discussion that will now continue amongst ministers in the ECOFIN format regarding the ceiling for holding limits, and then ultimately on the issuance process itself for the digital euro. And after much work, we found a broad consensus on the balance with regard to these important issues, and this balance is in full respect of the mandate and prerogative of each institution that is involved in the digital euro. And this signals the determination that we have to advance this important project, and I want to underline again my view that the digital future of the euro is an essential part of its future. We are all now very conscious of public understanding and trust with regard to this project, and that's why we've put so much time and consideration into these discussions. And all of this will now move forward under the Council presidency, where legal drafting will continue and then be presented to ministers. We then had a very short information point on recent G7 discussions, and while today wasn't an opportunity for a detailed discussion because there are so many different elements now underway, it also provided an opportunity for us to get some helpful updates on that work. So a very, very productive and a very conclusive discussion here in Eurogroup today, and it sets the scene for a lot more work that we'll do when we meet again in Luxembourg in October. So Valdis, over to you, and thank you.
Yes, thank you, Pascal. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be back here in Copenhagen for these meetings as we look ahead and prepare for a particularly busy end of the year. Let me begin with an update on an economic outlook. Economic activity grew at a faster pace than expected in the first half of the year, especially in the first quarter, as investment and exports exceeded expectations. For a year as a whole, we expect slightly higher growth than 1.1% projected for the EU in the spring. At the same time, growth momentum is set to slow down, but not reverse in the second half of the year. This reflects numerous headwinds, including slower global trade growth, continued uncertainty, and geopolitical turbulence. Hence, our growth outlook for the next year has become somewhat weaker than it was what we published in a spring forecast. But overall, the EU's economic foundations remain sound. Labour market in particular remains robust. We see wages going up and inflation going down. This is good news for households and should continue to support consumption. However, there are various risks to the outlook, so we cannot be complacent, and this underlines the urgency of taking decisive action to secure our prosperity and autonomy in the long term. This brings me to the next point. I very much welcome the ambitious Eurogroup work programme as presented by Pascal today and look forward working with the ministers to implement it. Let me briefly mention three elements from the Commission's perspective. First, on coordinated fiscal and economic policy, safeguarding fiscal sustainability and simultaneously ensuring adequate spending for key priorities, especially security and defence, will remain a critical issue in the time ahead. The Commission will help Member States in making these difficult policy choices, including through a credible implementation of the new economic governance framework. Secondly, in view of recent economic developments, it has become even more important to discuss ways to enhance Euro's role as an international and digital currency. And I will return to today's discussion on a digital euro in a moment. More generally, however, we need to make progress on some long-standing work strands, such as Savings and Investments Union and Banking Union. And finally, we need to work on enhancing Europe's competitiveness. As you know, competitiveness is a central focus of the European Commission. Guided by our competitiveness compass, we have already made progress in turning recommendations contained in the Draghi report into reality. But more is needed, and we need to work together to maximise impact. And in this case, once again, I welcome the focus Eurogroup's work programme is putting on this. Turning now to digital euro. While we had seen slow but steady progress over the course of the last 2 years, there is now a growing urgency to reach political agreement and address remaining open issues. So today we had a discussion on this, and I'm pleased to report that we made a significant breakthrough in today's meeting. The Eurogroup, as Pascal said, reached a political agreement on institutional framework for setting the ceiling for holding limits, which ensures an appropriate role for both the Council and the European Central Bank. This agreement provides fresh momentum to efforts to reach a common approach in the Council by the end of the year. And here I would like to thank the Danish presidency for their commitment in processing this crucial file and reaffirm the Commission's commitment for providing all necessary support. Finally, I also debriefed on the G7 finance ministers' call in relation to increasing pressure on Russia for its aggression against Ukraine. The European Union and its member states have always shown strong leadership in a G7 format and in supporting Ukraine. For example, no one has implemented stronger sanctions than Europe, and they work in particular as part of the coordinated G7 approach. G7 sanctions have already inflicted real costs on Russian economy ranging in hundreds of billions. But it's clear that we need to step up the pressure against Russia further to make its war of aggression unsustainable. In this spirit, the Commission's proposal for the 19th sanctions package will further aim to weaken Russia's already weakened war economy, and I expect you to hear details on this very soon. Second, on reparations law. As President Ursula von der Leyen announced in her State of the Union speech, it will be a limited resource loan to Ukraine funded by cash balances from immobilized Russian central bank assets. This, however, would not affect Russia's claim on the financial institutions holding those immobilized cash balances, which would remain fully in place. But this loan would be repaid only if and when Ukraine receives reparations from Russia, so basically front-loading the reparations. It's only right that Russia pays for the war it started. We are now working on technical details, addressing certain concerns and questions to build a legally, financially and fiscally sound instrument. And importantly, it is also scalable at G7 level, and several G7 partners have shown interest in following a similar approach. I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Lagarde.
God morgen. And I would like to thank, first of all, the Danish authorities for their great hospitality. We all met last night for pre-reception meeting in the beautiful, beautiful building of the finance minister, and had a chance to observe the 300-year-old ceiling of that room. And that really was a good start off to a meeting that has been productive this morning. I'm not going to repeat the projection numbers that we had last week when I presented our monetary policy stance. They generally align with the latest presentation by the Commission. I've flagged for my colleagues the changes that we made in terms of our projection and our balance of risk, so that they are fully aware of the changes that we have decided in that projection exercise. So we had a good discussion on the economic outlook, as indicated by my colleague, the President of the Eurogroup, and Valdis Dombrovskis, the Commissioner in charge of those issues. On the digital euro, I would like to really commend and express gratitude to our President of the Eurogroup, to his team, and to all those who have worked long and hard during the summer to make sure that we arrive at a compromise solution that both secures the institutional competences of all institutions, addresses the concern of those who think, rightly so, that the digital euro is not just a means of payment, it is also a political statement concerning the sovereignty of Europe and its capacity to handle payment, including on a cross-border basis, with a European infrastructure and solution. So what has been discussed and approved unanimously inside the room, which included Eurogroup members, but also non-Eurogroup members, is the starting point of further work that will continue to be done both at the European Parliament. We're very anxious to see that moving fast, and what will be conducted at the Council level and, of course, amongst technical experts. So this was, from my perspective, as president of the ECB and a strong advocate of the digital euro, together with my colleague Piero Cipollone, a good step in the direction that we hope will be completed in as short order as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. President Engineer Tagamini.
Good morning, everyone. I am pleased to be back in beautiful Copenhagen, where I was the last time back in December 2002 for a European Council that was very successful because it was one that was setting the stage for the enlargement of the European Union. So it's nice to be back, and I would like to add a couple of points on the recent economic developments as seen from the perspective of the ESM. What are the dominant views of the market? First of all, the trade deal with the US over the summer helped avoid an outright trade war and larger damage to the euro area's output, at least temporarily. It provides predictability to enterprises, and that is good for growth. The Commission needs to be commended for achieving this result. But the deal carries risks. It needs to be implemented, and one cannot guarantee a smooth process. The US administration can change its mind very quickly. One also needs to keep in mind that these tariffs are hitting some sectors of the European economy that were very productive, and so the productivity challenge is there in front of us. On the financial side, it is fair to say that investors are still reconsidering the safe haven status of the US dollar, and there is increased interest in euro assets. We also notice that on the markets ourselves as ESM, and this is an opportunity that we should seize. Further on markets have been relatively calm for the time being. But investors are closely following developments, eyeing at inherent uncertainties and weaknesses. Turnarounds can happen very quickly. Investors will look at how we deliver on the European Union reform agenda and look at the fiscal policies of member states. Let me, in that context, make a remark on France. The market reaction to the downgrade of France by rating agency Fitch on Friday was overall calm because investors had already priced in the prospect of a downgrade. Market pricing was already reflecting the rise in political uncertainty and fiscal concerns that followed political events in August. Finding a credible policy and budget path, reducing the deficit over time in line with the new Stability and Growth Pact, which the French government is committed to, remains crucial. More broadly, the European economy needs to be strong and to grow. That means encouraging growth and keeping public finances in good shape is important, not just because it's the right thing to do politically and economically, but it also helps prevent future market turbulences and financial risks. Let me conclude by a comment on the good discussion we had today on the digital euro. The ESM fully supports the European Central Bank's urgency in making the digital euro a reality. In these times of constant geopolitical turbulences, the urgency is greater than ever.
Thank you. And you take a blink of questions. Paula, please.
Thank you very much. Paula Tamaro, the Financial Times. A question for President Lagarde. How does the ECB view the idea of a reparations loan using the cash balances? Would you be open to that?
Thank you very much for your question. First of all, it's a matter for which there was no particular document tabled, so I would refrain from making any decisive statement in that respect. But our concerns has been expressed in the past, remains the same, and we are obviously attentive to the compliance with international law and with the concern that is ours about financial stability and the sovereignty and the sovereignty of our currency. Thank you.
One over here.
Thank you so much. It's Balázs Korányi from Reuters. Question about the digital euro. You spoke about a compromise, but you didn't really give us too much detail on what the compromise is. So I would love all of you to kind of unpack what this compromise is. And at least the two of you spoke about threshold limits, holding limits, but you didn't really go into the details. So I'd love to know what you decided on those limits.
So really what we discussed today was the procedure for limits rather than the limits themselves. And I should say that any detail in relation to all of this will now be considered by the Danish presidency, where they will then produce texts that will lay out the detail of how this will all work. But on the particular matter of holding limits, our focus is on the procedure for determining the holding limits rather than the limits themselves. And in the discussion that we had here today, an important element of the compromise that we reached is that before the ECB make a final decision in relation to issuance, that before that decision takes place, there would be an opportunity for a discussion at Council of Ministers in relation to that date, in relation to how the project will move forward. And in that particular discussion, I remain confident that the ECB will listen to the views of ministers and consider it, as they have done throughout this entire procedure. We have, as a group of ministers, full respect for the mandate and independence of the Commission and of the ECB, but they have also shown themselves very attentive to the fact that this is an important decision that ministers need to be able to make the case for and explain. And an important additional step that we introduced today is a preliminary discussion on it as the entire process moves forward. So that's the key point.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jorge Valero with Bloomberg. Two follow-up questions, one on the assets and on the digital euro. On the assets, for President Lagarde, even if your concerns are no, you remain attentive. You also said that you haven't seen any paper. I don't know if that was an indication that you would have liked to see more details and papers beforehand, before the proposal, given how sensitive is this issue for the role of the euro for the ECB. And I don't know if you changed any details or concerns with the Commission beforehand to raise these concerns when it comes to the assets proposal. And secondly, on the digital euro and the holding limit for any of you, for all of you rather, very quickly, if you believe, any of you believe that the threshold, the holding limit should be below 3,000 euros. Thank you.
All right. On your first question, let me just first of all state that there is always good communication between the Commission and the European Central Bank. On a matter that is as sensitive and can be as complicated as this one, because it involves various parties, guarantees, as was indicated by Commissioner Dombrovskis, I want to see something in writing, but I'm not the only one. I think all member states involved in the process will want to see something in writing, because that's the only way to appreciate the trigger, the liabilities, the exposure, and to make sure that the key principles which are dear to both the Commission and the ECB, in other words, compliance with the international law and respect of the sovereignty, are actually respected. So, yeah, we look forward to, all of us, not just the ECB, yeah? We all look forward to seeing something in writing. And on your second question concerning the threshold, I would refer you to the response that was very ably provided by the President, which is that we did not discuss a limit. We discussed a mechanism which involves a ceiling and a threshold, but we did not discuss the actual threshold, and it's premature to do so at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
if I may.
Sorry, pardon me.
If I may add a couple of words on this reparations loan. Well, obviously, after having made this announcement, the Commission is currently working on all the technical aspects of this proposal. We also need to determine the volume of this reparation loan based on the IMF's assessment on the Ukraine's financing need over the next 2 years. So clearly that will require more work, and the Commission is right now working on this, and obviously will present it to the Member States and all interested parties. And indeed, so what is novelty in this proposal that we are not proposing seizure or confiscation of Russian sovereign assets. We are proposing that Russia's claim on those assets remain in place, but we are using cash balances which have accumulated due to the fact that those Russian assets are immobilized, and as they mature, to provide this reparations loan to Ukraine. So that, in a sense, allow us not to deal with the sovereign immunity issues which had been plugging those discussions beforehand. And here I would also highlight just a few weeks ago we had in very same building the EU Foreign Affairs Ministers' informal meeting, so-called Gimnich meeting, where we were also discussing those issues, and it was clear that there is no unanimity among EU member states concerning, for example, confiscation. So our proposal falls short of that.
And just to emphasise the point on the holding limits, again, today is about procedure. Because of the different views and the really important policy matters that will need to be settled regarding the level of holding limit, it's vital that we have precision regarding what will be the procedures in relation to us. And we now have a common understanding with regard to that, and that will enable at a far later point a decision on the holding limit themselves and what the threshold will be.
Can I just...
Thank you very much to our speakers.
Excuse me, do you mind if I compliment, because I think it's important. As Commissioner Dombrovskis said, it is no seizure, no confiscation, from what we understand, but it's substitution of a claim on cash to a claim on Eurobonds. Is that correct?
Well, as I said, obviously we are now working on all of those specific elements, but it's so the basic concept is that indeed we are not touching Russia's claim. We are using accumulated cash balances, issuing a loan to Ukraine, and Ukraine will only have to pay this loan once Russia pays reparations, and this is something which is agreed by both European Council and G7 already before, which allows them to reinstate those cash balances for paying those loans and following the Russian claims on those assets. Obviously, it implies that Russia first has to pay reparations, as is already decided.
Thank you. I think we have to end it here. Thank you very much for participating, and to our speakers.
Thank you.
The formal ECOFIN is going on, so
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is Audio Channel Floor.